Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Amy Morris. Here are the stories we're following today.
Amy, reaction continues to pour into Apple's unveil of its long-awaited new artificial intelligence features, including a partnership with ChatGPT maker OpenAI. Apple stock fell almost 2% yesterday. It's down another 0.5% in early trading. A new AI platform called Apple Intelligence was the highlight of the company's Worldwide Developers Conference presentation. Here's Apple CEO Tim Cook.
Recent developments in generative intelligence and large language models offer powerful capabilities that provide the opportunity to take the experience of using Apple products to new heights. Introducing Apple Intelligence, the new personal intelligence system that makes your most personal products even more useful and delightful.
Tim Cook says the technology will help summarize text, create original images, and retrieve the most relevant data when users need it. Bloomberg chief Apple correspondent Mark Gurman says the company did not gain ground, though, on tech peers like Alphabet's Google and Microsoft.
You saw nothing today that's better than the competition. You saw nothing today that's different from the competition, except marketing and a focus on privacy, right? So that's the difference here. They're not the first, but they're also not the best, and they're not the most advanced. They're here extremely late, and they showed up to the party without a gift.
Bloomberg's Mark Gurman says Apple also announced plans to launch its Vision Pro headset internationally. Pre-orders will begin in China, Hong Kong, Japan, and Singapore on Thursday.
And Elon Musk says he'll ban Apple devices from his companies if OpenAI software is integrated into the products at the operating system level. We get more with Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The remarks followed a presentation by Apple where it said customers would have access to OpenAI's ChatGPT chatbot through the Siri digital assistant. Apple plans to roll out the capabilities as part of a suite of new AI features later this year. Musk co-founded OpenAI but had a falling out with the San Francisco-based startup. Writing on X, the social network that he owns, Musk said, quote, "If Apple integrates OpenAI at the OS level, then Apple devices will be banned at my companies." In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Charlie, thank you. Turning to the economy, we are just a day away from a double dose of economic news that could jolt markets. Tomorrow morning, we get the latest reading on consumer prices, followed by an afternoon Fed decision. Bloomberg's Michael McKee says the inflation print could have a big impact on markets.
The CPI number is going to set the trading tone for the summer because we won't get enough other data to really change people's minds over the rest of the summertime, because we've got other events that will come in and affect people. So it's not going to be as much about the data.
Bloomberg's Mike McKee says since its June 2022 peak, headline inflation has slowed by 5.7 percentage points.
And some key economic data overseas this morning. UK unemployment has unexpectedly risen to the highest in more than 2.5 years. Unemployment rose to 4.4% in the 3 months through to April, while pay increases held steady. The mixed data is expected to complicate the Bank of England's decision about when to cut interest rates.
Well, staying in Europe, Amy, Bill Gross says the Eurozone is the place to look for opportunities. His assessment came in the aftermath of election results. It showed a rightward shift by the region's voters. Bill Gross spoke to Bloomberg the day after two of Europe's most influential leaders, France's Emmanuel Macron and Germany's Olaf Scholz, suffered surprise defeats in Sunday's European Union Parliament elections at the hands of the far right.
I think in terms of an attraction, German 10-year Bunds and French Oats, the 10-year there, their spreads have narrowed significantly in the past month or two relative to treasuries, and today as well by 8 or 10 basis points. So there's coming a point where European bonds are more attractive than Treasury bonds, in my opinion.
And according to Bill Gross, the recent market reaction to other elections in Mexico, India, and South Africa also offers a guide for how the U.S. campaign might affect assets come November.
And speaking of the U.S. election, Donald Trump is slated to meet with Senate Republicans today before he heads off to a meeting with prominent CEOs at the Business Roundtable in Washington. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has those details.
This is the latest effort to plot out priorities if Trump wins and also the pathway to get there. In an email obtained by Bloomberg, Senator John Barrasso, part of the GOP leadership, made the invite, saying it will be helpful to hear directly from Trump about his summer and to share strategic planning. The CEO meeting is being hosted by the Business Roundtable in Washington, and of course, Trump is hoping for backing and monetary help heading into November. Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Ed, thank you. Meanwhile, former President Trump sat for an interview with New York City probation officers yesterday for about a half hour. That interview will help a judge decide how much time, if any, Trump spends behind bars for falsifying business records. That meeting was conducted virtually. The former president was at his home in Florida. The officers were in New York. Sources tell Bloomberg News Trump's lawyer also participated. Sentencing set for July 11th. Trump and his legal team have already taken steps to file an appeal.
And now to a story that could fuel the debate about whether the Supreme Court has become politicized. Justice Samuel Alito and Chief Justice John Roberts were secretly recorded at a high court gala last week by Lauren Windsor, a woman claiming to be a conservative Catholic. They discussed whether compromise is possible between the left and right. Justice Alito told the woman one side or the other is going to win, and then the woman said this.
I think that the solution really is like winning the moral argument. Like, people in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that, to return our country to a place of godliness.
Oh, I agree with you.
That conversation with Justice Alito was posted online by Windsor, who describes herself as an advocacy journalist. The New York Times reports Chief Justice John Roberts pushed back in his conversation with Windsor when she asked him whether the court should move the country toward a more moral path. The charity that hosted the gala issued a statement saying it condemns the surreptitious recording of justices at the event. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Amy. It was supposed to be the first in the nation congestion toll in New York City. Now the city's transit chief is speaking out after it was put on hold by New York Governor Kathy Hochul last week. Much of the money was to go to the city's bus, subway, and commuter rail system. Modernization projects like electric buses and accessible stations are on the so-called deprioritized list as the MTA seeks to preserve the basic operation of the aging system. MTA CEO Jano Lieber says they'll also try to ensure service is not reduced.
It may feel right now like things are a little crazy and even that there's a crisis, but we need to stay focused so that we can maximize the situation for our riders.
The plan to charge drivers $15 and more to drive through Midtown was expected to yield $400 million this year and then $1 billion annually. New York Governor Kathy Hochul.
I made the decision to not go forward, to pause at this time, because I don't think New Yorkers, based on what I've heard from people all over the city and the advocates and the people who are deeply concerned about what it'll do to our economy, that a $15 toll at this time is too much.
The MTA still plans to pursue congestion pricing. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says the shipping channel at the site of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore has been fully restored. A limited shipping lane had been operational for 3 weeks. Since the bridge's collapse in late March, the Corps has removed about 50,000 tons of bridge wreckage. North Dakota voters today will decide a ballot initiative imposing an age limit on the state's congressional delegation. A person would be barred from running for Congress in the state if they are 80 or older. Jared Hendricks is with the group Retire Congress North Dakota, which is behind the measure.
There's a lot of discontent with Congress right now, and particularly there's a lot of support both for term limits and for age limits.
Jared Hendricks with Retire Congress says in several states there are already age limits on state judges. Jurors are set to resume deliberations in the criminal case against President Joe Biden's son over a 2018 gun purchase when prosecutors say Hunter Biden was in the throes of a crack cocaine addiction. Hunter Biden's lawyers have argued that he did not consider himself an addict when he bought the gun. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg. Amy.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Time now for our Bloomberg Sports Update. And for that, we bring in John Stashower. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Amy. One reason the Yankees have the most wins in baseball, they've stayed healthy. Garrett Cole went down in spring training. Looks like he'll be back soon. The lineup stayed intact until Juan Soto's injured arm last week. There was a sigh of relief when it was learned it wasn't serious. And after sitting out the weekend series with the Dodgers, Soto returned in Kansas City as the designated hitter. Had a hit and a walk, and the Yanks scored twice in the first inning, added 2 more in the fourth. They beat the Royals 4-2. Carlos Rodon went 7 innings, won his 7th in a row. Last season, Rodon was 3-8. His ERA was near 7. This year, he's 9-2 with an ERA under 3. Stanley Cup Final, Game 2 in Florida. Edmonton was shut out in the opener. Scored first period. It was 1-1 after 2. To that point, the Panthers had outshot the Oilers 22-7, and Florida won the game in the third period.
Ekman Larson straight on Rodriguez to Lundell. Anton Lundell near side. Lets it rip, tipped, and they score! Evan Rodriguez got a stick on it, and the Panthers make him pay. It's 3-1. 7:34 to go in the third. Evan Rodriguez has 2.
On WQAM, Panthers added an empty netter, won 4-1. Teams up 2-0 in the Cup Final have won the series 49 of 54 times. Dan Hurley staying at UConn, turning down a Lakers job that would have more than doubled his salary. Hurley will now try to coach the Huskies to an NCAA three-peat, something not done since the UCLA dynasty. And Mike Tomlin has a 3-year extension in Pittsburgh, now signed through 2027. Tomlin has been the Steelers coach for 17 years. He's never had a losing season. U.S. Open tees off Thursday in North Carolina. The field will include the Aussie Adam Scott. He got one of the last spots to keep his streak going. Scott has played in all of the last 92 majors. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports, Amy and Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager. AI for the rest of us. It's how Apple's top software engineer is describing the Apple Intelligence features just unveiled at the iPhone Makers Worldwide Developers Conference. Apple's long-awaited bid to catch up in a fast-growing space that rivals like Microsoft and Google have already made massive strides in. Joining us for more is Bloomberg Intelligence senior tech analyst Matthew Bloxham. Matthew, good morning. We've seen kind of an underwhelmed market reaction to what we saw at the WWDC yesterday. Are these features what Apple needs to get itself into the AI game?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, they're only a starting point. I think we have to remember the context that in the last couple of months, the Apple share price is up something like 18 to 20%. So that there was a lot of share price movement in anticipation of this announcement. And I think, we heard pretty much everything that had been flagged before. So, as you said, they need to step into the AI game. This is a kind of very broad range of updates to the full suite of their apps in the ecosystem. And it links very specifically to their hardware lineup because, unless you've got an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, you're going to have to get an iPhone 16 when they come out, I guess, September, October time to get access to this Apple Intelligence platform. So it could be a welcome boost to their iPhone sales, which have been sluggish for some time now.
What kind of a boost do you think this could give to Apple's bottom line when it comes to those sluggish smartphone sales?
I mean, it's a good question. If you look at consensus for the kind of next financial year, which would reflect the iPhone 16 sales, the market's looking for kind of 5 or 6% growth from iPhone from kind of single-digit decline this year, so quite a big swing, and that is enough to kind of really I guess add billions of dollars to the bottom line. So kind of could be a really important driver for it. And I guess there's going to be a big debate between now and September about just how many people are going to see this as the catalyst to finally make an upgrade to their iPhone.
Seems like the centerpiece of what we saw yesterday was this partnership that Apple's going to enter into with OpenAI, the ChatGPT parent. Is that going to be enough, a tie-up with an existing startup to make strides against Microsoft, against Google?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think Apple would dispute that it was the centerpiece. I think they see it as a kind of icing on top of the cake. Really what they majored on yesterday was the Apple created generative AI features that are integrated into the operating system and into the device hardware, and that a large amount of what they showcased is based on the Apple generative AI tech, but they want to be able to give their users access to third-party products, of which ChatGPT is the leading in that kind of genre. And I think what we're going to see over time is potentially more deals alongside that. So there's been a lot of talk about them doing a deal with Google on their Gemini generative AI platform. So what you could eventually end up with over the next year or two is, the core on-device Apple-created generative AI platforms, and then this range of extras on top, ChatGPT being one, Gemini being another, perhaps even an Apple rival product to that, and the user can then choose which one they go with.
In our last 30 seconds, that integration with OpenAI seems to be something that caught Tesla CEO Elon Musk's attention. He's saying that he would ban Apple devices if it gets too integrated. I mean, how big an issue is that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, Elon Musk's empire business isn't going to account for too many devices, but, it is an important issue that generative AI does open up people to all sorts of privacy and security risks. Now, Apple's made a big thing about keeping privacy at the center of what they do in AI, but it's going to be an issue that evolves. You have to remember that, Elon Musk has formed with ChatGPT and OpenAI. He's also developing a rival product to that. So there's kind of lots of things in the mix there to contextualize his comments. But, definitely privacy is a big issue for generative AI and how we use it.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Amy Morris. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.